purposes. So welcome. So I would like to now welcome our Executive Director, Karen Belcher. Karen, let me take you off. There you go. You're all set. Welcome.
Great. Thanks. Thank you, Michael, and thank you everyone for being with us this afternoon. Like Michael said, happy fall. It's crazy to think that we're already into this season and looking at winter coming upon us quickly. But as we finish out September, for those of you who may not be aware, September is Hunger Action Month, and that's a national event where we are trying to build awareness around the work that we do in the hunger realm. And the color of Hunger Action Month is orange, so it's a way to kind of promote the work that we're doing. And there's a day every year in September that's the actual Hunger Action Day, which was September 17th, and we all got together and wore orange that day, and it shows just our solidarity and our work to end hunger in our communities. This year's, I guess, campaign, you would say, is that food shouldn't be an impossible choice. And I think a lot of us here, as we're talking with individuals who use the Emergency Food Network, that sometimes they have to choose between food and rent, food and electricity, food and medicine. So that's really the campaign's focus, is to bring more awareness around that, and that it shouldn't be an impossible choice. So we thank you for all you do year round to help individuals, not have to make that choice, because they have this network to rely on in those times of need, when they've paid those bills but then don't have any money left to help purchase groceries. So thank you. So it is a great way to build awareness during the month, and just, you kind of challenge everyone to, what is your action going to be to help us in this work? And we have companies that do food drives, they do runs. So there's lots of activities that go on during the month to help support and show that they are helping us to take action to end hunger. So it's been a great month, and it's almost over. And one of the things that I've been able to do this month with the help of Michael and his team is to get out and meet some of you and see your sites and talk with you about what you're seeing and what you've had happening, and what you've done to kind of work through this past 18 months. So it's been great to see you, great to be out in the community. If I haven't been out yet, it is my goal to come out and say hello and thank you to all of you. So be prepared to possibly have me on a visit with Michael or Brian or Renee in the future. So I thank you, though, for letting me come visit and sharing your work with me as we're meeting. I have some exciting news to share for our Northern New York partners and programs. So we found out in June that the SNAP outreach coordinator in the Jefferson County area the contract was not being renewed, and the food bank knows the need for the SNAP component of the work that's in all counties. But we decided that we wanted to make sure that this did not go we wanted to make sure it was there in the community. So we are working with some partners to fund this, and we have hired an individual who started on the 20th of September, and she is from Jefferson County, and she will be in the county doing the SNAP outreach work. She will be housed in the Northern New York Community Foundation building. We've had an office in that space for about 4 years now, and it just made sense. We have the space up there. Let's get someone hired in that community to do the SNAP outreach work. Well, we took it one step further, and we said, how about an agency relations staff up in that community to work in the counties up in the North Country? So we have a new staff member joining us on the 4th of October who will be also housed in that office space as one of our agency relations coordinators, working with the programs and just available as you need them to help you in the work that you're doing. So be on the lookout to meet Angie, and I don't recall Angie's last name, Michael, so I apologize. But Angie's our new agency relations coordinator, and then Molly will be in Jefferson County for the SNAP outreach for that area. So welcome them if you see them out and about at your sites. Food bank here. So we are thinking, strategically of what's to come, and we are just about to embark on our next strategic plan. We were able to secure some funding to help us in this work. So we have just finalized going through some consultant proposals, and we have hired or partnered with a firm to help us with our strategic plan work. So what I would say to all of you is, you may be receiving a survey to help us in this because you are our stakeholders in this work. And we want to get your feedback as we look to, how we continue forward and what our future is and yours in this emergency food network realm. So we will reach out to you and let you know that survey is coming, and we'll let you know that the date that's due for our consultants. So stay tuned. And then last but not least, speaking of surveys, the agency relations team has put together a wonderful survey, just kind of gauging where you're at currently, maybe where some needs are, what are you seeing? And what we're really hoping for is to learn from all of you, where we might be able to help you as we move forward. We do have some funding that's restricted that we might be able to help you with some items as you move forward in your work. So just, be on the lookout for some communication around that. We're still trying to work with the board on what that looks like and how some of this funding gets allocated out. So I can't guarantee that you would get funding, but there is the potential for some funds to help as you move forward in your work. So those were probably some of my big highlights, Michael, and I will turn it back over to you, or am I turning it right to Becky? Not sure which. To Michael. All right. To Michael it goes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Karen. And in case you haven't filled out the survey yet, I just inserted a link into the chat box that will take you right to the partner agency survey for fall 2021. So thanks again for all of you who have already responded. And like I said, if you haven't had an opportunity, please keep us informed about what's going on in your world. So next up, we'll ask Becky Lair to give us an update on some of the many things that seem to be going on related to advocacy work right now. So we are going to, I'm going to invite Becky to come on up and speak. And Becky, you're on the air.
Thanks, Michael. So I wanted to start off by giving a really brief overview of the status of some of the temporary programs that were created in response to COVID. There's a lot of confusion out there as to what's still operating, what programs might be extended, what ones have expired. So this is by no means a comprehensive list because there's a lot, but I wanted to touch on some of the big ones that would be impacting households that we are serving. So as many of you are aware, the expanded unemployment benefits expired earlier this month. So that was the additional $300 per week that each household was receiving through their unemployment benefits. So that expired on September 7th. The eviction moratorium, nationally, it's still kind of in limbo, but New York State passed legislation independently. So currently the eviction moratorium has been extended until January 15th, 2022. So that would assist households who are struggling to make rent payments as a result of COVID. Child tax credit payments. Households are currently receiving an advance on their child tax credit in the form of a monthly payment to their household, and it's based on the number of children and the age of the children. So those are currently funded through December of this year. One of the big things that folks are going to be noticing very soon is some changes to SNAP. So there were multiple changes that each household might have seen as a result of COVID. So there was an increase to the maximum SNAP benefit that a household could receive. It was called an emergency authorization. So the way that worked is it raised the maximum amount that a household could receive in SNAP benefits if they weren't already receiving that maximum. So many households started seeing additional funds that were getting issued each month. That is set to expire on September 30th, so a couple days. And then additionally, all households saw a 15% boost to their SNAP allotment. That is also set to expire on September 30th. So keeping that in mind, it's not all bad news. We're not going to see folks having their benefits completely slashed because of some positive changes that have happened. While the temporary boosts are set to expire, in August, USDA announced changes to the formula that's used to calculate out the minimum benefit that households would receive. So it was a reevaluation of something called the Thrifty Food Plan. So again, it's looking at what a standard grocery basket would cost, meeting minimum nutrition standards outlined by USDA. This formula has not been reevaluated since the 70s. So this was a huge accomplishment. This is something that we worked to get included in the last Farm Bill, this mandatory evaluation of that formula. So fortunately, the formula was evaluated, it was revised. So as a result, they're using a new calculation to allocate out SNAP benefits, and that goes into effect in October. So folks will start seeing that change with their October benefits. So while folks are going to see the loss of that increased maximum SNAP benefit and the $15 or 15% boost to SNAP, they're going to simultaneously see that increase using that new formula. So hopefully households will see a minimum increase in their benefits. It might only be $10, $12 a month. It could be larger. It depends on the household circumstances. So in a way, the timing of all this was really good because households shouldn't see a decrease. And if they do, it should be very minimal. So in addition to that, I wanted to remind everybody that every year on October 1st, new income guidelines go into effect for SNAP. So if you have folks, when you are doing the intake process and you're asking them if they've ever applied for SNAP or if they're receiving SNAP, if they tell you I've applied for SNAP in the past and I wasn't eligible, encourage them to reapply so they can contact the food bank. We can pre-screen them. Those income guidelines change every year. So while somebody might not have been eligible in the past, they could be eligible now. So we can certainly help to facilitate that. And ultimately the goal is to get as many people enrolled in SNAP who are eligible. So please make sure that you're encouraging folks to reach out to us so that we can reevaluate their situation. Additionally, another positive thing is that the cost of living adjustment is going into effect soon for Social Security, and the adjustment is going to be at a historic level this year. So I want to say it's 33% or averaging around a 33% increase in Social Security benefits. So we know that that's going to help out a lot of folks who are on fixed incomes. So while this is great news, for now, it's the same thing that happens every year. This COLA adjustment goes into effect. Folks start receiving additional income. However, once their income increases, it can impact their eligibility for SNAP. So that reevaluation will happen next year. So unfortunately, they giveth and then they taketh away. So, but just keep in mind that all of these different things are going on. And then on the legislative front, this is a pretty big week. It's pretty busy especially on the federal level. The government is currently only funded through September 30th. So we've got 3 more days until we're at risk of a government shutdown. So in my time here at the food bank, I think I've worked through 2 or 3 government shutdowns, some of them lasting longer than others. So hopefully we avoid that. What needs to happen is that Congress needs to pass something called a continuing resolution. So that's a short-term spending bill, and it just maintains the current level of government funding. So it has already passed the House, and it proposes funding the government through the first week of December. The Senate is scheduled to vote on this tonight. It is not looking promising that it will pass the Senate. So the next couple of days are going to be very interesting to see what happens on the policy front to make sure that we avoid a government shutdown. In the event that there is a government shutdown, we will certainly be in communication with you about how this is impacting programs. In particular, the biggest concern is SNAP. And I don't have the answer right now as to how far out SNAP is funded, but that is something that became an issue during the last government shutdown that stretched on for quite a while. So again, we will make sure to keep you informed and aware of impacts to any nutrition programs and folks that are accessing our services in the event of a shutdown, and we will keep you posted. Additionally, I just wanted to touch really quickly and kind of circle back to some of those COVID relief programs that I talked about. There is another piece of legislation that I'm sure if you have been reading the news and following this, you have heard about it. It is a $3.5 trillion spending bill called the Build Back Better Act, and that's really hard to say. So it's easier to just call it the Human Infrastructure Bill. So there are a couple of the programs that were initially created in response to COVID and were part of COVID relief that are included and made permanent or extended in that piece of legislation. One of which would be extending those child tax credit payments that I was talking about earlier. Those would go through 2025. So we know that those have been really effective at helping households have additional resources available so that they aren't having to turn to the emergency food network. That coupled with all of these other programs that have really been giving them that financial boost. So we're very hopeful that that makes it through. The legislation is still being negotiated. Additionally, it would make permanent the Pandemic Ebt Program. So just as a refresher, that is a cash assistance, a cash benefit program to households with school-age children. So the intent of that program is to cover lost school meals for when kids are not in school as a result of COVID. So this would make that program permanent. It would be called Summer EBT. It would have different criteria than what is currently being used for Pandemic EBT. But this is a tremendous win for all of us who are working to fight hunger. And this is something that 3 years ago when we were pushing for it, we never in a million years thought it would be funded. And now it's making it into negotiations and final legislation. So a huge win. Lots of things are up in the air with that legislation. So as negotiations are ongoing in the coming weeks, and as it starts to make progress, I will make sure to keep you aware. There may be some calls to action where you can contact your members of Congress. So please make sure that you're following Food Bank's social media page so that you can stay up to date on those activations and use your voice. So with that, I will turn it back over to Michael.
Thanks, Becky. I know that everybody's very interested in what might be happening, and I know you've done a fantastic job of giving us that brief update, so we really appreciate it. It's so complex sometimes, so thank you.
Yep.
Next up, I'd like to invite Brian Mcmanus to give us some updates. Brian Mcmanus is Food Bank's Chief Operations Officer, and he is going to hopefully give us some insight into some of the fun things that are going on for the fall. Let's see, Brian.
That's me. Thank you, Michael. Hello, everybody. Thanks for spending part of your afternoon with us. It's good to be with you all. Yes, as Michael mentioned, I'd like to talk about where we are now and where we are directing our energy and where we hope to go. So I'm sure most, if not all of you, are familiar and aware that recently there was some communication from our team here requesting those that are not already at the level to increase their service to a 5-day 15-meal package for the people that you serve. And so we made that request with the intent to make sure that we are providing you with the resources that you need to accommodate that increase. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the different ways that we are doing that and what we hope to do. The first, and I know this one was quite popular, was the removal of shared maintenance fees from all donated food products. So that was a priority for Karen, as well as from other people here, and it is our intent to maintain that for the foreseeable future. We've received a lot of good feedback on that, and I can tell you that it has accelerated the pace of donated food coming through here, which is especially helpful when that food is perishable. It means that we are able to acquire more and make sure more is connected to you, your programs, and the people you serve. So from our perspective, that's working. I anecdotally believe it's working from your guys' perspective at the agency level, but please feel free to share if it isn't. So that's one of the things we're doing with donated food. We still continue to pursue all of the avenues that we always have to try to drum up the availability of that product. We're still bringing in donated goods at around high 300 to low 400,000 pounds a month. And we're still working with all of our regular donor partners to keep that supply coming. As far as the items we purchase, so the supply chain for food, we know all about the disruptions that have taken place. It is not all the way ironed out for a variety of reasons. Most people cite, of course, COVID, increase in fuel prices and the cost of some of the packaging goods, bad weather. But we're not talking about what we experienced last spring and last summer. We still are able to acquire our core inventory items. We still have those all on the menu. There will be some associated cost increases to those items. And from time to time, you might see limited availability on some items, specifically as we get into the holiday season. I do know that holiday items will be a little bit more difficult than in the past to acquire. But it's our intent to mitigate those challenges. So we will be flexible. We'll change our purchasing strategies as needed. Try to bring in some complementary items if something becomes too costly or unavailable. And always keeping you informed of what we're doing. So we did together had a great deal of success negotiating the disruptions of the past year. I cannot express how much we appreciate people's flexibility and understanding as we were forced to change products or ask you to do things a little bit differently for a little while. And successfully, in my opinion. So thank you again very much. And I'm also happy to say that some of these upcoming challenges are a little bit mitigated by the fact that we've already done a great deal of acquisition. We have a very good supply of shelf-stable goods on hand right now. Our menu, if you look at it, is full with all the items that we expect to carry. And we do have the resources on hand for the immediate future. So this is not anything to induce a panic, just so people are aware of the circumstances and what we might be facing. But we will keep you in the loop at all times. So in another way that we've been fortunate to bulk up our resources is for those of you that are Tfap eligible agencies that acquire the USDA commodities through us. I'll give you a brief history of what we've seen relatively recently. So in the past 5 years or so, there were pretty significant increases in the availability of what are basically referred to as bonus items. So one of the ways that Tfap foods get offered to us is it just comes across as an opportunity. Here's a food you can, an entire truckload of food you can take or not take. There's no middle ground. It's yes to 26 pallets of food or no to 26 pallets of food. And our culture here is yes, always yes, as much as we can. And what we saw over the past 5 years is a lot of those opportunities for a lot of different commodities at first driven by trade mitigation for the most part, but then blending seamlessly into COVID relief. And so, instead of a tight, restrictive supply of that line of food, it became almost a culture of abundance. And so we're not out of that culture yet. We still are extremely well stocked with Tfap commodities, largely in the shelf stable dry good category. So the very things that were challenging, or if not impossible, for us all to get our hands on last summer and early spring or late spring, now we have them. So it's been a remarkable turnaround. The team here that is responsible for acquiring those things has worked very hard to make sure we have that supply on hand. So from time to time, we will identify certain items that we have an especial surplus of. And in the past, some of those items have been among the perhaps not the most popular things, and that's why we ended up with a surplus. That is not necessarily the case anymore. I can tell you right now, 3 items that we are extremely well stocked in Tfap is canned applesauce, peanut butter, and whole wheat pasta items. So we encourage generosity with those, and we will work to communicate to the programs when we identify things like that we hope to accelerate the distribution of. So we are at the tail end of all of those specific programs that generated the trade mitigation program has concluded. But as Becky mentioned, we're now transitioning over to the Build Back Better plan. And we're starting to see some of the initial offers of food for that we will receive in calendar year 2022. It's very promising. It remains to be seen what level those will be at, but we will still maintain our intent to accept and distribute everything within reason. So that's we're in a good place with the Tfap commodities. I will say there is more than in the past tremendous oversight of that program on us, and so we do just ask everyone to please maintain your record keeping and post your civil rights and justice for all. And please notify us as soon as possible if there's any discrepancy in your order that you receive. If your invoice indicates a specific quantity of an item and you have received a different quantity of that item, please let us know right away. We will remedy that. And it helps us stay on track. Retail donors. So in the spring, some of you may remember, we sent out kind of a survey of interest to see if people were perhaps interested in a new emerging retail opportunity. And then we were not able to really move much forward past that because the retail donor, the rollout of that particular store chain has been delayed and delayed. They are not ready to begin that partnership. So I apologize if some of you felt like that was kind of left lingering, but that's kind of where we all are. We were told this would be a spring 2021 initiative, but now it's clear that that's not the case, and it may not be 2021 at all. But we do have other retail opportunities that are popping up, and we will use that the reply to that survey to try to make some connections with people. My colleague Nate O'Grady, who is not on this call right now, will be spearheading that. And in the resources that we put out afterwards, we will include his contact information for people that want to investigate that. We do have some opportunities to really help people get ready to take on that that opportunity in terms of material supplies and training, and as well for anyone that's already conducting retail donations. We do have the opportunity to bolster that in any way you might need. Some of the other interesting things that are going on as far as food supply, the Nourish New York program continues. While the federal Farmers to Families program ended in May, Nourish New York does continue. And for anyone that does not know, that is a New York state funded initiative to purchase New York agricultural goods and connect them through the Emergency Food Network. So some of the ways that that happens is we keep our menu for you to order stocked with items that are indicated, while they are a wholesaler purchased item, they are indicated as free because those do not hit a HIPNAP grant or your own funding or any way. They are paid for by Nourish New York, and they go out to your program at no associated cost. Largely, as you probably know, New York is a dairy state, so it's many items like that. Cottage cheese, string cheese, yogurt. We have kept those items well stocked since we started receiving the funding, and some produce items that you may or may not notice are from New York State, but they are, and they're similar to HIPNAP produce grant, covered completely by grant funds. And we do use that program to create mixed box items to assist with distributions at your program or large scale community distributions. So if anyone has interest in those things and they wanted to acquire a larger quantity of those things, that would be best to notify us ahead of time because most of this is perishable goods. We do have to keep the inventory sort of tight. And if we know that there's an increased demand, we can bring more in, but to bring additional products in the hope that someone will take it is not been successful for us. So please, if that's something you're thinking about, reach out. We do have on our website an application for community food distribution, or you can reach out to one of us here. Maybe we'll list the contact and the resources that go out afterwards, Michael. Okay, we'll do that. But one of the benefits of that is that we now have fresh fluid milk in our inventory at a stable and predictable level that we hadn't in the past. Generally speaking, when we have fresh fluid milk, it is a donated item, which also would be no cost to that. But pack sizes and shelf life and expiration time was somewhat sporadic. What we've been purchasing is the extended shelf life milk. It's not shelf stable. It still requires refrigeration. It's just the milk you've always known and come to love, but they do have better processes so that the code dates go out much further. So when you're ordering milk off of our menu, it is free, it is no cost, and you will have adequate time to distribute it, and people will have adequate time to bring it home and store it in their refrigerator without spoilage. So I'm excited about that. And as long as the Nourish New York continues, we will have those items. As far as how long it will continue, it remains to be seen. I think there's a lot to iron out at the state level, and I defer to Becky to sort through those tangled knots. But it's worked great for us, and hopefully for your program as well. And then in kind of the same format, there is a new program that New York State is rolling out called the Restaurant Resiliency Program, where the intent is to purchase finished meals I believe, individualized for distribution through the Emergency Food Network through New York State restaurants. It does not have to be New York State agricultural product. It just has to be a New York restaurant. That the way that it is intended to work would be restaurants would be responsible for the preparation, the packaging, and the delivery of the food to an emergency program that's capable of distributing it. So this is great because there's restaurants everywhere, all throughout the service area, and it can be pretty efficient. We think that together we can work to tremendous advantage and have this be a great program for all of us. But the details are still emerging on that. So I expect a communication with more detail from us, hopefully within a couple of weeks, but there's still a lot of things to be determined as far as what those restaurants will be and how they would go about getting approved for this process. The exact plan and detail for that, I know it will be done by New York State, presumably by the Department of Agriculture and Markets. Food Bank will not be the one to certify and vet these restaurants. It'll be done at the state level, and then Food Bank's role will be to assist in connecting those resources to willing programs. So it's something to think about, and we certainly will keep you informed as we get informed ourselves. And also another resource, transportation. Our trucks and our drivers. Personally, I'm thrilled with where we are with that department. The feedback I've received indicates that many of you are thrilled as well. We have a great team. We have made a bunch of upgrades to our fleet, which has been long overdue and very welcome. So we have some efficiency and some capability that we didn't have a year ago. And that's all intended to be of service to your program. So there's a lot we can do. Speaking of those guys, it's September now, but winter is coming. So I will ask everyone as we get into the winter months, if you are expecting a delivery of food from Food Bank of Central New York, please, please, please have the area cleared of snow for our vehicle and our equipment so we can keep those guys safe and keep you safe and stay on track. I believe that's all my information that I know to share, but perhaps we move to questions soon, Michael?
Yes, thank you, Brian. Yes, winter is unfortunately coming back to upstate New York this year, so please get your shovels ready. In the chat box, I had just posted a link to the New York State Restaurant Resiliency Program that our donations manager, Peter Ricardo, shared. So if you're interested in that program, check it out. And of course, we'll keep everybody updated as we know more. So thank you. Now we'd like to kind of open the floor for some questions and answers. I know many of you have probably have some questions. There's been a lot going on this year, certainly through the summer and whatnot. So we'd like to open the floor for questions if anybody has them.
Michael, we've had a couple questions come into the Q&A. Do we want to unmute folks to ask them, or we just want to read them?
Yeah, let's unmute some folks if they're willing to speak.
The first question I had was from Connie Jenkins. So Connie, if you'd like to ask it so everybody can hear, I will unmute you. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go. Ahead, Connie.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it kept flashing. Hi, well, thank you. This is a lot of information and it's all great stuff. I was just curious, going back a little bit with the new hires. So Michael, does that mean that we see them before you or instead of you?
You might see new
In St.
people.
Lawrence County?
You might see new people in St. Lawrence County, but I can assure you I'm certainly going to be out and about. They can't keep me in the office forever. So I will be out and about visiting sites and working on some of the bigger picture projects for the network and the agency. So yes, you will still see me quite a bit, I hope. So absolutely.
Well, that's good. Thank you.
Assuming you want to.
You're always welcome.
All right, thank you, Connie. The next, we had a couple questions from Greg Parn, so I will unmute Greg, and you can ask your questions here. So, hold on. There you go, Greg. Go ahead and ask your questions if you can speak.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. First of all, reference to Connie's question first. We'd welcome Michael and any of the food bank staff to come down and visit the Teresa Food Pantry. Love to have you. Would like to listen to some of your tips. My first question, though, has to do with the rise of COVID-19 in our particular area. Our volunteers are concerned about personal contact. So could we possibly go back to the COVID-19 in the signature box on the intake form when they visit?
Yeah, Greg, so something, and I apologize that it's never been very clear, and also it's never been made very clear to us by the Office of General Services. However, with the intake forms, clients only have to sign the form once per year. So if you can verify that they've signed the form when you switched over back in July or August or even in September, as long as they've signed it once this year, you're all set until June. They don't have to actually sign again. You do, however, need to continue to track the number of clients and households with adults, children, and seniors that come through. So, so the answer to your question is partially yes.
Okay, so they don't need to sign with each visit, correct?
That's correct, as long as they've signed once in this current year.
Second question.
I was just going to add, Greg, that the OGS, the state had the emergency procedures in place, and when those ended, that's when we had to stop just putting COVID-19 in as the signature. So, you know, I would say if things continue to get worse and increase in cases, they may go back to that. But at this time, they have not alluded that that is where they're going and what they're going to do. So. But we will let you know if it does change.
My second question has to do with the current trend in shopping. Does the food bank have resources available or training available to assist the pantries with online ordering, similar to what the pantries do at the food bank? Like I order from the food bank 6 cases of corn or whatever, whereby our customers could order like 6 cans of food from us, 1 jar of peanut butter, that type of thing. So does the food bank have any resources or training available to help us set up that type of online ordering?
So Michael, I can't speak to the resource part to Greg, but I can share that there are some technologies coming down that will be available to us that we can share with our agencies. That's called pre-order. We are not at a point yet where I think that we can, take on that project from a staff component. But I would say that there are a lot of pantries that have come up with some really innovative ways to do some advanced ordering, whether that's them leaving their shopping list outside for individuals to pick up ahead of time, state on that what they would like and what their family would utilize, and then they're turning that in ahead of the day of the food pantry so the boxes can be packed ahead. Michael, I'm drawing a blank on some of the other, and kind of innovative things that pantries are doing. So I don't know if maybe we can share some of those ideas, Greg. Maybe that would help you currently to look at some ideas around how to do that, so that it is a little faster, and you know ahead of time what individuals are needing and wanting before they get there.
Yeah, Karen, one of the easier programs that I know a couple of agencies that I've spoken to recently have utilized is just a simple Google form to help clients determine or help clients request what their needs are for the food pantry, and it's free. And I know a lot of programs around the country have been using Google Forms in some variation or another. So that's a potential possibility as well.
Google form is a check off type thing. We list what we have and they check off what they want.
Yeah, or you can add some text boxes as well, so they can type in something their needs. There's a couple different options there.
Thank you very much. That's all the questions I have for now.
So our next question, it looks like Rebecca Dowling. So give me a second and I will unmute. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Good afternoon, everyone. My question is, if it is predicted that Social Security could go up as much as 33%, would a current client that has an income of $1,800, they would get $600 additional dollars on that, and then they would not be eligible for food pantry, or are those qualification amounts going to also?
Michael, do you want me to take this, or do you want to take it because she's referring to the food pantry income guidelines?
So as far as the food pantry guidelines go, once the client is certified as of July 1st as being eligible, they're good until June 30th of the following year. Beyond that, we have to wait and see from the food pantry perspective how that gets calculated. The Tfap income eligibility is different from SNAP eligibility, and it is different from the poverty level or poverty rate. So the Tfap eligibility is 200% of the poverty number. So clients can have up to 200% more income than the actual poverty amount.
And also, Rebecca, I just want to note that 33%, it's a rough figure, and I think it's going to vary by household as well. But it is going to be the largest cost of living adjustment as long as I can remember. I don't know if it's ever been this big of a cost of living adjustment, and part of the reason for that is that they take into account inflation costs. So we're all very well aware, and Brian has touched on this, that the cost of food has increased. So this is reflecting in that. But it may potentially impact eligibility for folks that are on Social Security and are currently receiving SNAP. Their eligibility for SNAP or their SNAP benefit amounts may change.
Right, we will move on to Suzanne Norton, who had a product question, it appears. Hold on one second. We will get you unmuted here.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself.
There you go.
My question is to Brian. And you said on the USDA and so on, you've got that applesauce. Is it the same old applesauce we've been getting that nobody will take? Or is it are we getting a new supplier for applesauce?
It is still the USDA Tfap applesauce, unsweetened, canned. As far as whether it's I don't know the brand of it. Andrew, do you? If you're out there.
I just know none of my people like it
doesn't.
because it's.
They
so
don't
I
like
think
it?
that's why- No, so that's why I don't order it, because I go and buy it in the store because they just won't eat it.
They say it smells bad, it looks bad, and it tastes bad.
Oh God. All right.
And I have looked at it. I haven't tried it, but I did open a can and look at it, and I wouldn't have eaten it myself because it
Okay.
was, yeah.
Well, that brings us to another. So anytime that there's a product quality issue that you are aware of or you feel strongly about, please let us know about that, because it's not really possible for, we don't have always the direct feedback from the consumer, and we're not really able to test as much as we would probably like to. I don't think. Yeah. So please share that, because that's something that when you pass that along, it gets shared to all of the staff, and we track that. And if there's other people that are having the same experience, we're able to kind of gather that information and take action on it.
Because I know we've talked with a couple of the other food pantries, and they're saying the same thing, that people just won't take it because it looks and smells bad. So, I
Tastes
mean,
bad too.
I really
So-
feel bad because that means I have to go out and buy it, which is not a problem. I will do that, but if I could get it free, it would be great.
Well, let me look into this for you, because what happens is with the Tfap program is that any number of entities can win that contract. And so the brand changes from truckload to truckload to truckload. It's not always from the same source.
Okay, thank you.
And that's the type of feedback that we can provide upstream to USDA as well. And we have had some success in years past with collectively food banks sharing concerns with specifics about items, pack sizes that really were not feasible for the emergency food network. So all of that information is valuable to us. So thank you, Sue.
Looks like we had a question from Judy Gelston. So Judy, give me 1 second. I will get you unmuted here. Let's see. All right, go ahead and ask your question, Judy.
In view of the fact that you said the government may be shutting down, will people's Social Security checks still come on the date that they are planning on?
Judy, historically, Social Security payments have gone out with very minimal interruptions because it's considered essential funding and essential spending. Again, we just kind of have to wait and see what happens as of this Thursday night, and whether or not this is even an issue. But historically, that has not been a problem with Social Security. It's more so been an issue around SNAP, and that was during longer duration shutdowns. And while we're talking about Social Security, I completely butchered and gave you incorrect information on the cost of living adjustment. And thank you, Christine, for pointing that out to me. The 33% figure, I think I was conflating the changes to SNAP benefits. So I apologize, it was tremendously incorrect. So I wanted to correct that figure now. So the cost of living adjustment is projected to be around between 6.1% and 6.2%, drastically different than 33%. Yeah, horribly sorry. I'm so sorry for giving that incorrect information. I'm mortified. And so thank you, Christine, for pointing that out. That is still an unprecedented increase. So I can't imagine that this would be taking folks out of that eligibility range for food pantries. But again, this is still a concern around SNAP. So again, thank you, Christine, for pointing out that error. And I'm so sorry for getting that figure wrong. I think that 33% figure was coming from what the potential increase is going to look like with that recalculation of the Thrifty Food Plan and the differences between what folks would be receiving in their SNAP benefit. So I'm so sorry. Thank you again for pointing that out.
All right, looks like we have one more question from Laura Sauer. She has a question about the extended shelf life milk, so I will unmute her here. All right, go ahead, Laura.
Am I on?
Yep.
Okay. Brian mentioned the extended shelf life milk that's coming in, he said. Is that different than the shelf stable milk in those little cartons that look like little juice boxes? I just want to make sure I'm handling what we received already properly.
Yes. So, sorry, I don't think I was using exactly the right terminology. So, shelf stable milk is what you're referring to. It looks like a juice box, and it is, you can store it at room temperature. It's in cryovac usually. What I'm talking about is just a regular carton of milk that you would pull from the cooler at the grocery store. It's called UHT, which is ultra high temp. That is just a better bacterial killing process in the processing of the milk. And so, I mean, it was not too long ago when any milk in the store had a shelf life of perhaps 7 to 10 days at the most. And these can be out much, much further. Just, it's a new process that they're doing. And Burn in our area does produce milk that way. So sorry about that. UHT milk, different than shelf stable milk.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, that looks like all the questions that came in. So,
Just in time. So thank you everyone for attending today. We greatly appreciate all that you're doing for the community. And if you do have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. If you have bad applesauce, please let us know. We're happy to track that so that we can hopefully prevent that from happening in the future. But thanks again, everyone. And just as a friendly and quick reminder, we have a webinar coming up. Our next webinar is on October 20th. We'll have a guest speaker from a program in California called Leah's Pantry, and they're going to talk about some nutritional strategies and options to get folks the good nutrition that they need. So thanks again, and I look forward to seeing everybody soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you guys for spending your time with us.